So my thing with Ben Foster was the very first meeting. I didn't know he was Jim Martin. And after we had talked, and I think you guys were all there, and I'm like, who was that guy? Because he made my skin crawl. And they're like, that's Jim Martin. And I was like,
My thanks. That's my Jim.
Oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, have I got a treat for you.
sit down, buddy. We're getting ready to do some work.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I'm David Chambers. I am from Big Go Media. Very excited today to talk about your new film, Christy, coming to theaters November 7th. Welcome to Washington, D.C. Thank you for your time, man. How's everyone feeling?
Yeah, we're good. Happy to be here.
Good. Oh, man. Was telling, I was saying, I think it's very easy to walk into this film and think you're getting into a sports film, and it's just so much more. Even to your credit, I would love for you to repeat it for the record that a lot of the sports details aren't even necessary. The first time you signed with Don King, the record isn't really announced until we get into the ring at that moment. So we missed the whole point of you already fighting 30 times, and the belt you were fighting for at the time, it wasn't announced in the film. These are like the little details that, of course, in the sports film you want, but it takes the focus away from the bigger message that would be into. Could you dive a little bit more into that, a little bit about some of the sports details that was removed so that a lot more of the humanity and the family aspect was highlighted?
Jam's drinking. Do you even notice this when you're watching the film that there's, normally when you watch a boxing movie, it'll have on the screen saying this is the arena and this is the date and this is maybe the title that you're fighting for or whatever, but none of that's in this movie. It's that you track the fights in the film seem to be tracking the course of your life, and that's kind of all you need to know. You're never really aware of the specifics of where you're at in your career. You just know that you're starting from scratch and that at a certain point you're the greatest without needing to spell it out. Do you notice that?
Well, not really. I mean, honestly, because I already know where all those fights happened, and I already know what the record was. But that's really awesome though, because when we first talked about the movie, it was like, this isn't a boxing movie. Yeah. It's so much more than a boxing movie. And so because those little details are not there, it just helps to show that it's really not about the boxing. It's all about the domestic violence, the sexuality, the drug addiction. There's so many things. The underdog. Hey, coal miner's daughter gets up and does this. It's about that stuff, not about the boxing.
Yeah.
Can I talk a little bit about why you all decided not to shy away from any of those specific details? The movie is raw in that capacity, and there's a lot of documentaries and biopics out currently right now that very much highlight very particular parts or pocketed moments in one's career. But we seem to highlight everything. And again, away from the sports aspect, but again, to the humanity, the person, the human being, the as you mentioned, the trauma, more importantly, the resilience behind everything. Why was it important to tell that story? Although it's not glitz and glam, but it was what needed to have been shared.
I'll take this one. Well, there are a lot of really defining moments in Christy's life, and some of them are in the boxing ring, and some of them, unfortunately, are not, and some are traumatic moments. And I think it's the reason why we wanted to make this film was to tell Christy's entire story and not shy away from the stuff that is uncomfortable. I think while some of it may be difficult to watch on screen, it's also really necessary. It's important stuff. And there's a very big difference between seeing the kind of violence in the ring and the violence outside the ring. And yeah, we felt like it was important to see all of that.
Yeah, I think when I'm trying to find a movie to make, which is like trying to find something to devote, at least 2 years of my life to. The thing I'm looking for first and foremost is a character, and I had seen documentary. I'd seen Laura Brownson's really great documentary about Christy, and then I met Christy, and straight away was like, oh, okay, I've got a character here. It's just like it's something. I was saying this morning, but it's just like this. These two kind of seemingly incongruous aspects to Christy's personality. It's so weird. We haven't done an interview together sitting in this. This is the first one.
Oh, I'm honored.
It feels weird to be talking about you while you're sitting there.
So now I know what you're going to say. We might have to talk later.
Yeah. But I just like these two aspects of Christy's personality that are seemingly incongruous, which are like she's both adorable and ferocious, And I don't know how they exist in one human, but they do.
Yeah.
I'm a Gemini. Good in the bed.
Huh?
I'm a Gemini.
You're a
I was
Gemini.
born in June, so I'm a Gemini. There's the good in the bad twin.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, I get it now.
I'll be the first to say, and to be brutally honest, when I first saw this movie announced and saw that Sydney Sweeney was going to be portraying you, I was a little concerned. I was like, Sydney Sweeney? Is that what you're saying? Really? And she did a fantastic job. I would love to just kind of open the room up to you all. I think her transformation is something a lot of people are going to be talking about. She's not the only one. There's transformations across the board. I mean, Chad is DK. I DM'd her right away. I was like, my guy, like he's a local person from around here too. I was just baffled at how good he stepped into it. But for you all, just wonder, was there any transformations you would like to highlight in terms of the actors stepping into these iconic people in Christy's life?
Well, I just want to say Sydney is going to get a lot of attention, and deservedly so. But I think Ben Foster has done an extraordinary job, and it's the one. It's a brave thing for an actor to do. It's really he had to go to some very dark places and accept that. I think Christy can speak to this, but he had to accept that in certain pockets of the production, he was on the nose, so to speak.
So my thing with Ben Foster was the very first meeting. I didn't know he was Jim Martin. And after we had talked, and I think you guys were all there, and I'm like, who was that guy? Because he made my skin crawl.
Ooh.
And they're like, that's Jim Martin. And I was like, oh, shit. And then there was one time during filming, I stayed completely away from him during filming. One time during filming, there was a building we were in, probably had 20 doors. I went out the door that Ben Foster happened to be sitting outside. I immediately started cursing. And like, you have to be kidding me. I came out this door and here you are. Like, because he was Jim Martin. Yeah. And then I had to realize, I took a deep breath and realized that's just Ben. But I walked back inside. I didn't talk to him. I didn't hang around. I left. All of my friends that have seen the movie, some of them were on set, and everyone had the same reaction. Yeah. Ben Foster makes my skin crawl as Jim Martin. And that's because people aren't going to know Jim Martin as much as they've seen me. Everybody's not going to realize how great Ben Foster is in this movie.
And you've grown to love him.
I absolutely love him. He comes to my fights I promote in Nashville, Tennessee. He's been to the fights. He showed up in Toronto in a pink suit with a Christy Martin Promotions t-shirt. Are you kidding me? Come on. How can I not love that guy?
How about you, Mirrah? Is there anybody that kind of stood out to you in terms of their transformation?
I mean, yeah, I would have flagged Ben as well. I think it's a real compliment that everyone had that reaction. Everyone that knew Jim especially had that reaction. I think everyone's great in the movie. I think Katie O'Brien's fantastic in the movie. She's really great. And obviously Sydney does an incredible job.
I'm sorry. My hand out means give me the microphone. It's just in terms of transformations, I just want to give a shout out to all the amazing stunt women who worked on it, because, they train to look amazing while they're fighting. And it was really important to me that the fighting in the film feel, to the extent you can, but feel sort of real, which means fighting messy, or in doing the exhausted clinches and the swings and misses and the just the tiredness of it, which for them was a kind of transformation, and they just did it so well.
I'd love to hear your reaction to that, because that's one of the biggest things I wrote in my notes as a combat sports enthusiast. When you see these theatrical products, it's also polished and crisp. You saw really sweet Sydney throughout time just starting to get better and better, and it showed the progression in your career. But as you said, none of the fights were particularly clean at points. But as you got deeper into your career, you saw, the sparring, the ghost boxing, it was great. In the band, I was like, this is it. This is how you do it. This is how you really bring the fans along, because you come out the gates as an amateur fighter, you're like, that jab looks pretty crisp, But yeah, I would love to hear your reaction about the fights, the stunts, and all the people involved.
Well, I think that it shows how seriously Sydney took the role, because she went to the boxing gym. She learned how to throw good combinations. We worked on her left hook a little bit. I got her twisting this a little more, getting a little more power behind it. But the stunt, like you said, the stunt women were just awesome. And they were also taking their role seriously. They wanted the fight scenes to look real. And that's one of the biggest complaints we have with boxing films. Some of them are so BS. And then I think these fight scenes are really good. And, I was in the back actually during some of the fight scenes, yelling for Sydney to throw the left hook, knock him out. And then Sydney comes back and she says, "But Christy, you knew I was getting ready to throw the left hook. You already know what's going to happen."
That's amazing. This time of year is always very special for film. It's award season, and this is a film that's getting a lot of buzz already, or all the way since TIP. But ironically, just this time last year, Carissa Shields also had a film that was getting buzz. And I think there's a statement to be made here, because not only in terms of female women boxing, that should be getting the same amount of respect as men's boxing, but I also think these stories are now being put to screen through her life, to her becoming a champ, a two-time Olympian, to yourself as well too, being a pioneer that's opened the gates for people like her. What would be your statement and your reaction about female professional boxing, but also the stories behind these women and being brought to the big screen?
To me, I'm going to take it just like I took my career. I just wanted to be a boxer, and I just wanted to fit in. I did not want anybody to walk away and say Christy Martin's a good woman boxer. And it's the same thing with the movie. I don't want anybody to walk away and say, "Oh, that was a good movie about a woman boxer." I want them to say that was a great movie about a boxer that was out there to help others in their life, whether it was in the domestic violence, deal with their sexuality, drug addiction. Just, I'm the ultimate underdog. And if I could do it, anybody can.
Absolutely. I agree with that. This makes me why Carissa calls herself woke, GWOT. And I was like, take out the W there.
Man, let me tell you what my mama told me. She said, if you don't have something good to say about somebody, don't say anything. So I'm not going to comment. But come on. The quote? Are you kidding me? That she don't know that she's doing what she's doing because I did what I did?
That's right.
Come on, man.
That's right. Two other things I want to quickly ask. There was a particular character that shows up in the film. We didn't spend a lot of time with her. That's Rosie. I want to know what that particular moment in your life meant. Very emotional moment in terms of, and I literally was crying of the moment of just remember my number. but also just the idea that this seems like a pivotal turning point in everything. It's almost kind of feels a little angelic. One of those type of like beings or callings where somebody's there, they're not there anymore. And by the way of the film, the situation with your mother kind of dismissed, and we don't really know what happens, but that's why I felt a little bit bigger than just a person here and not here. Could y'all all talk about what that moment sort of represents in Christy's life?
Yeah, well, the Rosie character is the only character in the film that's a combination of two people from Christy's life. So she's a combination of two former girlfriends, and that had played significant roles in various times in Christy's life, and played beautifully by Jessica Bohr, I have to say. It's a really interesting character, because you sort of need to know that while she's very significant in particularly in the early days in Christy's life, and there during the darkest moment, you sort of also need to look at Lisa Hollowan character and go, this is the person for Christy. So I think it's a fine line to tread in that role, and I think Jess plays her really, really beautifully. Yeah. You got anything to add, Dave?
No, I want to hear Christy. Or not.
Okay. So, do I tell
Yeah.
so here's what
say.
happened. As Mirrah said, Rosie is two people, and one of those people is Sherry Lusk. And Sherry Lusk was my girlfriend when I was in high school. She was the person that came to the hospital the night that I was shot and stabbed. She was the one that told me to remember her phone number. She was the one that had an argument with my mother in the hospital. She played a very important part of my life. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. My final question, again, just from the outside by proxy, you look at this film, you say sports film. Of course, this is exactly what it's not. And in sports films, you cheer for the knockout. In this film, I cheered for the moment that Christy gets up from a moment that I think it's safe to say, I'm surprised it wasn't a statistic being told by the doctor here, but I would imagine there's a very 2% or very even smaller chance that anybody survives an attack as such. And at that moment, I would imagine that you realize that your life meant greater, a lot greater than just, in the ring. And obviously everything you advocate for, it confirms that. I want to know for you in that moment and to this point now, understanding that this film is going to open up conversations. It may actually add some serenity for other folks actually going through it as well too, domestic violence survivors. What is your message to them? And that moment of resilience, what do you sort of reflect or attest that moment to? That inner will, that inability to give up that you've shown in so many different capacities of your life, but in the most defining moment that you probably never prepared yourself for, you did the unthinkable. Again, that percentage that a lot of people do not get up from. What would be your message, and what do you attest that moment in your life to?
Two things. One, I was not going to let Jim Martin win.
Yeah, right.
And two, God has a bigger plan.
Yeah,
and then maybe that should be first, and Jim Martin not winning should be second. But God has a bigger plan for me, and that's why I'm here, 100%. And I think that through this movie, it's going to open up opportunities for conversation. That's probably the most important thing. And then it's also going to show people, look, I have to get out, because we don't know when that next day that the switch is going to flip and he's going to try to kill me is coming. So don't stay 1 second longer than you have to. And I really think it's going to be important, that the conversation, and it's going to make it more comfortable for people to talk about domestic violence.
Yeah, know those flags, know the red flags, know what the progression is, become familiar with what it can turn into, because the other really important statistic is the amount of women that are killed by intimate partner violence and domestic violence everywhere. It's alarming, those statistics.
Here in the United States, 17 people per minute.
Mm.
So we've probably been talking, 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Do the math. That's how many people were attacked by an intimate partner while we were talking.
And I would also say, you as a champ, even mentioning that your biggest regret was not asking for help, for all the help around you. And I think a lot of people are going to realize that it's okay to ask for help, even when you are a champ or the badass on the whole planet,
Well, I was supposed to be tough, but it could be happening to me. It can happen to a school teacher, which I'm also a school teacher, by the way. But it can happen to anybody. It can happen to a librarian. It can happen to a doctor. It can happen to a senator. It doesn't matter. It can happen to anyone.
We were in Middleburg a couple of days ago at the film festival, and after the screening, there was a woman at the Q&A in the audience and with her daughter, and she was deeply moved with something. She was in tears, but talking about wanting how important it was to her that her daughter saw the film, and saying she also wants, she hopes that fathers sit down with their sons to show them the movie. And it's in part because, yes, there's the violence, but for every woman who's being attacked in any given minute, there's also an exponentially greater number of women who are trapped in these coercive control relationships that maybe aren't even being attacked, but they're still being kind of held hostage in a way. And so even if all the movie does is show people the red flags to look out for, because they're always there. They're always there. They're like a template, a playbook for this stuff. I think that'll be a win.
Absolutely. Well, for sure, you all have a win with this film. November 7th, Christy comes to theater. Christy, David, and Mirrah, thank you so much for your time today. Congratulations thus far. Can't wait to hear this call during the award season.
Thanks
for having
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chad.
I